Hello, my name is Jeff Bassey, and thank you for making time for us once again to come into your space. We will today be discussing the question of people management. People management. Now, the question of managing people is not just HR's work. Yes, this might be coming from the Human Resource Certification Institute, but I always say that the business of people management or managing people it's an assignment for every supervisor, every manager, indeed every managerial staff. So this is not a discussion for just the HR people, but for everybody who is in a leadership position in an organization. Now, you would agree with me that managing people is quite a Herculean task. It's a difficult task to manage people. But why is people management difficult? Why is it difficult to manage people? Listen, working together with people is by far one of the most difficult adventures since the beginning of time. Moses had problems with Aaron. Saul had issues with David. Thabo Mbeki fired his deputy, Jacob Zuma. The man we eulogize so much, Nelson Mandela, couldn't live with his wife. Jesus Christ had problems with Judas Iscariot. Working with people, managing people is just a Herculean task. It's difficult. But why is it so? Why is managing people difficult? The first reason is that people appreciate things from two different perspectives. The way you see it is not the same way I will see it. Now, I remember when I got admissions to university. I come from a relatively poor background, no private vehicle at home to lift you from home to campus. So you go in a cab. Now, the taxi I was in going to campus for the first time, the taxi driver was playing a piece of music in the background. And till date, many years after leaving school, anytime I hear that piece of music, I start reminiscing that beautiful day. Now, on one particular occasion when I was with my elder sister, that piece of music was playing again on the television. And I took the remote, increased the volume. And then she was like, what I thought that that piece of music do to you? There is actually no sense in this song. Why do you always listen to it? Now, why will she have a problem with me? She wasn't there the day I had that good encounter with that piece of music. Why would I not understand that she should like the song? It's because she has not had any experience with that piece of song. It is the same piece of song, but our different background cause us to appreciate that piece of music from two different perspectives. Hence the disagreement, hence the quarrel, hence when it is not managed well, can lead to a fight between us. The first reason why it is difficult to manage people and work with people is the fact that people appreciate things from different perspectives. The next reason why it is difficult to manage people is that people have minds of their own and they think for themselves. Every human being has a mind of his own, has a mind of her own, and think for himself. That is one of the beautiful things God has done to us as human beings. You don't have to ride to the Jubilee House or the Flagstaff House and wait for presidential approval to think. The mind or the brain is inside you and you can use it at any time. Every human being have a mind of his own. And if you are a leader and you do not appreciate this strength that every person, every human being is an institution on his own, on her own. Hence, you got to manage from the perspective of, appealing to his or her conscience, establishing agreements and what have you. You are bound to fail in your work as a leader in the organization. People make their own choices. If you were to be selling a ram or a goat and you rope it, taken to the market, you meet a potential buyer, you bargain over the price. Once you establish an agreement, you hand over the rope, the goat follows. I'm sure if a club were to be buying one footballer from one club to another club, we don't just negotiate with the club behind him and he follows. He makes choices. So I normally challenge managers and ask them, which of your staff working in that organization is working there on the orders of the High Court or of a court? They make a choice to work in that organization. Which of your customers do you place a gun on his or her head to want to buy from you? They make choices. They can also make the choice not to work for your organization. They can also make the choice not to buy your services or your products. You got to appreciate the fact that people have their own minds. They make their own choices. The next one is how much erratic the human mind is. Human mind is highly erratic. Our mind changes quickly. Today I want this, tomorrow I want that. Why do we have a young man and a young woman appear before a man of God? Do you want to take so and so person as your lovely husband? He said, yes, I do. What about you? Want to take her as your wife? Yes, I do. 4 months into the marriage, the man said, I don't do any longer. Why? What has gone wrong? These are people who didn't just wake up and got into marriage. They would have courted. They would have sought counseling. They would have prayed and actually believed that God has sanctioned the marriage, have approved the marriage. That is how come they went into the marriage. But on entering the marriage, expectations of one another or of each other are not being met. And one says, I thought you were like this. That is how come I said, I love you, or this and that. The human mind is erratic. Finally, human beings are simply unique. We are unique by our heredity, what we are born with. We are unique by our situation. If I say situation, our upbringing, the environment you grow at, the schools you went to, the friends you held or you had when you were younger, and all of that, the community you grew in and all of that. And then finally, the third reason why human beings can be unique is the fact that we are spurred on in life by different motivation. Now, I taught a young lady in the university who graduated with 3.98 GPA, 3.98, grade point average. And we were surprised. How did you get 3.98? And she said, well, I want to become a president for this country. And I thought that I got to get my grades and all of that. She might not become the president of this country, but what she would get on the way even to becoming president might be higher than those who never had a dream at all. We are motivated by different levels of motivation. Now, let me give this example to you. If you are the last born of 4 in a family, and the first child is, say, a minister of state, the second one is chief executive for a multinational, the third one is a conglomerate business runner, as in a big-time entrepreneur, and you are the last born, you can imagine the level of pressure that will be on you to also succeed. What if in the family you are the first to even finish polytechnic? You start comparing yourself to everybody else. You are likely to relax. Now, what am I trying to say? We be careful who you compare yourself to, because the wrong comparison can be the basis for your mediocrity. The fact that you are taller than a dwarf doesn't mean you're a tall person. It depends on who we are comparing you to. Now, these are all the different backgrounds that people come from, and they all come together to make a team in your organization, to make a department, to make the working staff. And there are people you got to manage with different aspirations, different value systems, different upbringing, different motivation, different situations, and what have you. The next other one I want to explore before I give you a couple of strategies on managing people is the fact that we are controlled by different belief systems. We have what we call predestination. A predestination mindset people are people who believe that everything is set and programmed by God to happen by themselves, and that it doesn't have to take their own efforts. So these are people who believe that if God says I will become a manager, I will become a manager. If God says I will grow, I will grow. If God says I will succeed, I will succeed. If he says I will not, I will not. These are predestination mindset set people. So if a driver was drunk and drove the bus into a ditch and kills people, a predestined mindset person gets there, and the first thing he says is that, well, it was meant to happen. If it didn't happen, night will not set. No, that is an accident born out of the recklessness of a person. I believe that, yes, as human beings, we have deities, God, who rules in the affairs of men. But I will always say that any man's future is a joint venture between God's intentions and your choices. God can intend it, and if your choices are not in the right alignment, you are likely not to hit the goal. These are belief systems. Now, looking at this belief system, I normally would ask leaders, how do your team members see you? What sort of perception do they hold of you? Is their perception the reality? You see, perception might not be the reality, but it does have very far-reaching consequences on how people relate to you. We all have the impression that politicians are corrupt. And I normally ask people, how many of them have you caught? You may have not have any evidence, but that perception, that belief of you affects your level of respect for the politician, affects your level, how you respond to him and all of that. Now, it is important that, managers or leaders, organizational leaders, begin to align the reality with people's perception. And the only way to do that is through what we call engagement. Now, let me give you this scenario that may probably resonate with what I'm trying to explain to you. So a child being sent to school by his parents moves out only to go play football whole day and returns because he has been watching Michael Essien and all the big footballers on television, and he thinks that he wants to become one of them. He returns home and the mother flogs him. The father flogs him. Now, what is the perception he holds? My parents are wicked. They don't want me to become Michael Essien. But in actual fact, the parents love that boy. Now, how do we align the reality of the parents' love for their son and the son's perception that mother or father is wicked? Through communication. After that flogging you did the night before, 5 a.m., you will go to his room, call him, and explain things to him. I have nothing against you becoming a footballer. But before you become a footballer, you got to be educated because you are going to host press conferences. You are going to sign contracts and you need to understand what you are doing that way we are aligning the perception of the boy in this case, or your subordinates in this case, to the reality that it is. Now, when we are leading people or managing people, it is important that we recognize the fact that people grow and mature. So normally we start from what we call the telling strategy. Now, what is the telling strategy? The telling strategy is where we give instructions to people what to do. But with time, you need to graduate to what we call the selling strategy, explaining why the directives. So you tell a person, go do A. This time around, you are telling the person, do A, because usually when you don't do A this way, this will be the consequences. You are letting the person into the reasoning behind the directive. And chances are that by establishing agreement with the person is more likely to get committed to the directive. Then we graduate to what we call the participation or the consulting strategy, where you don't just instruct as to what people should do. You raise the challenge and the two of you you discuss it till you build a consensus going forward. So people management does come with different levels of skills. Now, in the part 2 of this area we are looking at, which is managing people, I will be looking at the way forward. If it is difficult to manage people because of all the reasons I had given, if managing people is difficult because people see things from different perspectives, they come from different backgrounds, they have minds of their own, they think for themselves, they make their own choices, and they hold on to different value systems. And yet, we all need to come together and pursue a common objective as an organization, as a team, as a department, as a unit. How do we ensure that everybody falls in line so that at the end of the day, we can accomplish our objective? I choose to call it enforcing synchronized thinking. So in the part 2 of this episode, which is people management, I'll be walking you through the way forward, the solutions to getting people aligned so the organization can accomplish its objectives. Thank you so very much.